You're watching Committee Room WW02, the Lincoln Auditorium. Hardware and closed captioning for Idaho in Session is provided by the Idaho Legislature and Idaho Legislative Services Office. Additional funding is provided by the Idaho Public Television Endowment. You're watching Committee Room WW02, the Lincoln Auditorium.
Okay, welcome everybody. We're going to get started with just a few basics as folks trickle in here. We are really excited to welcome everybody to our annual Foster Care Awareness Day. And while we have a great group who are here in the Capitol, we'll be stopping in the Lincoln Auditorium. We also have quite a few folks who are watching online. So I'm going to be aware of making sure that we're speaking into the microphone and keeping things moving along. So my name's Christine Tiddens. I'm the Executive Director of Idaho Voices for Children, and we are hosting this year's Foster Care Awareness Day. And just to level set, today is a day that just offers us time to remember that foster care is an everyday reality for a lot of kids in Idaho. It provides us time to acknowledge that these children and youth and their family members, foster parents, volunteers, mentors, teachers, child welfare professionals, and the policymakers are all responsible to come together in community to help them find permanent connections and really find space to heal, grow, and develop. So today we're welcoming several hundred advocates from across the state joining in person and virtually. I am excited to share with you a jam-packed schedule of presentations here in the Lincoln Auditorium. First up, after my welcome, I'm going to welcome our new ombudsman, Trevor, to come up and talk a little bit about his position. And then at 10 a.m., we'll have Governor Brad Little stopping by to sign a proclamation declaring that today is Foster Care Awareness Day. At 10:15, we have a presentation that will focus on fostering communities of support. At 11:15, we have a presentation looking at hidden foster care and the roles of kinship families. We did have some last minute changes to the agenda. What I emailed out to registered attendees yesterday is correct. And then we do have our QR code links to download the PDF of the agenda. They're on the slides, and I did have one placed on the table back by the entrance. If you have any questions throughout the day, definitely reach out to me. It's always notable if somebody's wearing a name tag, especially one with a different color, we likely at least know how to direct you where to go in the Capitol building. So before I dive in and talk about what foster care in Idaho looks like, I wanted to make sure all of you know who's in this building and what's happening right now, and that is the 2025 legislative session. So we very purposefully host the Foster Care Awareness Day in the middle of the busiest time of session as lawmakers are debating budgets, voting on multiple bills, and that's because we want to remind lawmakers that foster care is a top priority for Idahoans and make sure that you all have a good timing to connect with your lawmakers and share about why foster care is so important for investing in to ensure the future of Idaho is strong. So, really quick civics lesson. We have 105 lawmakers, legislators here in the Capitol building. They're divided between 35 districts. So that means that each of you in this room have 1 senator and 2 representatives in your district. My homework for all of you today is to find your lawmakers in person and introduce yourself and why you're here today. And I'm going to give you some links in a second and how you can find them and then how you can track to figure out which committees they're in so that you can see if you can either make a meeting with them or just run into them in the hall. The legislative session is right in the middle of all the busy work. So our legislature meets annually, beginning in the beginning beginning of January, and then goes through typically March until budgets are set. Fun fact, the state constitution only requires that the lawmakers set a balanced budget, and so our Joint Finance and Appropriations Committee is really the most powerful committee because, one, it sets all the budgets, but also, two, because it dictates the calendar of events and when we can be done with the legislature. The lawmakers set a target date of ending the session, what we call sine die, by March 21st. I think that is very ambitious, considering that the list of bills that the lawmakers are considering continues to grow every single day. We actually are on pace to set records for the most bills printed during a legislative session. We're several hundred bills ahead of the average of the last 5 years. So what that means is you're coming into a Capitol building that is full of a lot of makers who this is their part-time service to the state of Idaho. A quarter of them were newly elected in November, and they were thrown in January to manage their own schedules, figure out how legislature works, what are hearings, how do you follow agendas, manage their own emails, their calendars, but then also consider and vote on over 700 pieces of legislation. That's a lot. And this is why it's so important that all of you take time to share your stories and your interests with your lawmakers. I guarantee each and every one of you hold an area of expertise that is very valuable as your district lawmaker considers the slew of bills in front of them, including the foster care budget and several bills that are dealing with foster care licensing and statute. So don't be afraid to find your lawmakers again and reach out. Your district lawmakers. So I had said, here's the slide with a QR link, or you can go to legislature.idaho.gov and click on Who's My Lawmaker. On this website, put in your home address, and it will pop up your 1 senator, 2 representatives, their email address, and their phone numbers. It also, in the information, will list which office, where their office is located. If you need any help, the security sitting at the tables in both of the wings and the basement are great at pointing you in the right direction of where your lawmakers' offices are. Also, really good and helpful advice. Everybody who works at the legislature wears a color-coded name tag. So if you see a white name tag, that is a senator, black is representative. It's okay if you can't read their name from across the hall, but if you see a black name tag, definitely feel comfortable of waving to the individual, saying, hello, representative, and if they stop to engage, share with your excitement to be here and why Foster Care Awareness Day is such an important day for you. This is a very friendly and open door atmosphere. It's okay to just drop in on your lawmakers and see if they're available. It's also okay to check out all of the different committee hearings that are happening, as well as the Senate and House floor debates. The public is welcome to come in and participate if the door's open. Go on in. And something to note, especially in hearings, if you come in, sit down, and realize it's not something that's of interest to you, you don't have to be stuck there the entire hearing. You can get up and leave. That's okay. The the fourth floor in both the House and Senate is where the gallery is to be able to sit in when the full floor is meeting and voting on their huge list of bills that they have to get through. It's a great place to just go watch, get a sense of how the legislature interacts with each other. If, again, you need any help, anybody with a different color name tag on, I'm sure will be happy to point you in the right direction if you're lost. You could find me, and then I'm going to point out several of our staff who can offer to be helpers. Craig, if you want to wave to folks in the room, Craig is our legislative intern, can help point you in the right direction, or at least look up and find your lawmaker information. And I'm going to point to Ayla. Ayla can be a great helper as well. Am I missing? Would anybody else like to be a helper? Don't want to put anybody on the spot. Okay, so I'm going to turn and just level set about what foster care is in Idaho and look at some data and numbers. Before I dive into that, of course, I have to acknowledge that foster care is tough. It's a difficult conversation. I understand that it brings up a lot of trauma and history that folks have, but it's so important to, I think, highlight that this entire foster care system and the families that it serves are imperfect. Foster care might be imperfect, but it is necessary. It exists because parents and caregivers go through really ugly things like drug abuse, or because they created unsafe living environments for children. It's a system based in family trauma, and children are forced to pay a really big price as they are removed from their homes and funneled into this really complex and unfamiliar world. I am encouraged every day being at the Capitol and coming together in community, because I know that not only can we do better for our children, but that we can pass legislation and that lawmakers can choose to prioritize the needs of foster children above all else. Improving foster care isn't just the responsibility of lawmakers. It's not just the responsibility of the system. It's all of our responsibility, the communities, everyday peoples, each of you here. So today, part of our goal is to really shift the conversation to focus on how we as community can come together to ensure that children who have been served by foster care grow up in supportive families. We're not here with a political agenda. I don't have any bills that I'm asking you to lobby on. I'm simply here asking you to share your experiences and how important this work is to all of you and why. Looking at some data, so when somebody suspects a child is being abused or neglected and calls for help, the state follows up to assess the safety of that child. Last year, the Department of Health and Welfare received about 24,000 referrals from the public regarding concerns of abuse, neglect, or abandonment. Most of these assessments resulted in families receiving really needed support services, such as food or housing assistance or substance abuse treatment. If the state determines that a child is being abused or neglected, then law enforcement can remove the child from their homes and place them with a foster family or with relatives. Last year, Idaho had 2,600 children served through foster care, including a little over 1,000 children coming into care for the first time. Many of the children, about 60%, entered into care due to neglect, and about 30% entered due to issues related to substance use, untreated mental health issues, and incarceration. Another 12% entered due to physical or sexual abuse. Last year, about 40% of children in foster care were placed in non-relative foster parents, leaving 32% being placed with relatives. There were about 1,200 licensed foster families this summer, something that we're seeing the state put a lot of efforts into increasing, and there are displays and some signage around with more information if you'd like to learn about becoming a foster parent. There is definitely an ongoing need to recruit families to help with fostering, but specifically families who are able to care for larger sibling groups, adolescents, and those with special needs. So again, check out the tables upstairs, and then there's QR codes on signs running around if you want to learn more. So in 2021, I was going to say last year, that was 4 years ago now, the legislature passed a bill that extended the age of foster care for youth who were going to age out at age 18. Really, the goal was to help ensure that these youth had the supports needed to be able to transition into adulthood. And thanks to this legislation, the extended foster care program was implemented in October 2021. And since then, 72% of youth who have turned 18 and aged out of foster care have elected to participate in the extended care program. This is incredibly high rates of success, and something so encouraging to think about, because these youth are now able to draw down education support, transportation support, and then have family and caregivers available as they're facing really difficult challenges, often for the first time, such as getting a driver's license, applying for technical education or college, etc. The benefits of the extended foster care program are very significant, and there's a lot of studies to show the impact that by allowing foster youth to choose to extend the age of foster care, they definitely have a much stronger start in life. I will point out, because we're so excited with the success rates, there is a current piece of legislation, House Bill 245, that will increase the age of extended foster care from 21 now to 23. This is a really important piece of legislation because it's covering 2 really critical years in young adults' life, and again, giving a little extra support to foster youth who need it. Another success that I wanted to celebrate from last year, and a lot of work that you all put in to showing up to the legislature, to hearings, was the passage of a bill, 1379 last year, that basically ended the use of the state placing children in short-term rentals or Airbnbs. So the bill went into effect in July 1st, and it put very strict restrictions on placements in what were previously unregulated group care settings. The intent that we had when we pushed for this bill was really clear, and we absolutely demanded an end to the troubling practice of placing kids in these very unsafe situations. And just to give a little context, in 2024, so last year when we were talking about this issue, there were 175 children who were placed in these short-term rentals. So thanks to the legislation passing, and it didn't just pass a little bit, it passed unanimously, meaning the legislature and lawmakers absolutely heard the need here. The Department of Health and Welfare has now reported that they ended the practice of placing foster children in short-term rentals in November of 2024. So for the first time in 5 years, 0 Idaho children are residing in short-term rentals, and that is a huge success that we can definitely feel proud of. Another success from last year was a bill that we helped introduce and get passed. It was Senate Bill 1380 to create a health and social services ombudsman. The goal of creating this new office was to have a child welfare watchdog responsible for protecting the rights of Idaho's most children, Idaho's children who are in foster care. We know, probably all of you know better than most anyone else, the child welfare system is really complex, and it contains a lot of blind spots and opportunities that present risks to children to fall through the cracks and experience rights violations. For example, we had a lot of youth who experienced rights violations in short-term rental settings, but when they asked for help, they didn't have a specific entity to go to call on that they could feel safe in sharing what they were experiencing. Before the bill was passed last year, Idaho was just one of 7 states that didn't have an agency identified to fill the ombudsman role for child welfare. So we didn't have a grievance process to assess and address rights violations or maltreatment in care complaints. So children were remaining in high-risk situations without a voice and without an advocate for their safety and well-being. But thanks to a group of lawmakers, and a lot of support from the community, we passed that bill with a significant margin of success, and it has been fully implemented. And that's what we're going to turn and talk about next. So I'm very excited to have our newly appointed ombudsman here to share more about what his role is with all of you and his plans for the future of the office in the state. So Trevor, if you'd like to come up here and join us, or join me at the podium, and I will sneak away.
Sneak away. All right. Can I take it off my picture and put it back on this one? All right, we're gonna leave it there. That previous slide you had was awesome.
It's in my hand.
There you go. I'll let you click. I just want that last slide that you had. There we go. That's much better than looking at my ugly mug up there. So I'm just curious, as we get started here, and you don't have to stand if you don't want to, but is there any current or previous foster parents in the room? If you'd stand up. All right. I don't know if it's appropriate to clap, but can we clap? All right. Thank you for that. So I wanted to start by that because I wanted to share. I was thinking this morning some of the things that I might share with you today. Because this is a great example of or a great description of what our office is about, what we'll be doing. And I'll talk a little bit more about our mission here in a minute. But I was thinking this morning and I thought, I think that foster parents are heroes. And so I wanted to read a definition. It's an AI definition, so my apologies that I went to Google and asked. But a community hero is someone who makes a positive impact on their community. They can be neighbors, friends, or colleagues. Community heroes can also be people who work for organizations or initiatives or who start in their own ways to help others. So I want to applaud the foster parents in the room as community heroes. And in addition, I want to applaud our friends that have already been talking and sharing some of the facts with you, and also our legislature. I didn't know if it was appropriate to clap when we talked about the congregate care and having 0 placements of those kiddos in congregate care. But talk about some other heroes. The legislature last year did some great steps to help the kiddos in the state. And so I want to applaud that if we can. The no more kids in congregate care. I was just going to do it, but I didn't know if it'd make a jump or anything like that. So some of the things that I also wanted to talk about is when those bills were passed, we had, I remember looking at some of the legislation and some of the news stories that were being presented for years, really, before that Senate Bill 1380 was passed to establish the Ombudsman Office. And all of the news stories that I saw generally started with Idaho child welfare crisis. That's what the headline was, or that was part of the headline. And, I was John F. Kennedy, in one of his speeches once, he talked about the Chinese symbol for crisis, which is really two different symbols. And one of those symbols means danger, and one of those means opportunity. And so I think the legislature last year really embraced the fact that we were in a crisis. We're still, I believe, in somewhat of a crisis. And I want to talk a little bit more about that point. But we saw the danger. The legislature saw the danger. They took action. And most importantly, we had some great advocates, some new leadership change at Health and Welfare. Director Adams and Deputy Director Monty Pro have done some awesome things over the last year in reorganizing, restructuring some of the things that are taking place and how they're taking care of these kiddos. So I think we're really at the opportunity point of a crisis when it comes to working with kids that are in care, and not just in foster care. Our bill 1380 and the establishment of our office also covers any kid in care. So any of the residential facilities in the state that the kids are in, psychiatric residential facilities, other residential facilities, if they receive public dollars at all, we do have the right and the mandate to investigate anything that's affecting those kiddos as well. And if they have concerns about their care, they're encouraged to call and talk to our office, and we will investigate those. So really, what I wanted to talk about, I only have a few minutes. Well, actually, you gave me a lot of time. Well, what are we going to do with that? So our primary focus, the mandate that I was given from members of the legislature and the governor as I got started, I was appointed in December. So it did take a bit to implement that bill. I was able to hire my first staff member who started last week, Brandon. If you just raise your hand, Brandon Cabrera. He will be our deputy ombudsman, and he comes to us from Missouri, and he's been here for a couple years, so he's an Idahoan now. But he was a police officer there, did investigations, was an SRO while he was there, and then has been working for Idaho Department of Corrections for the last couple of years while he's been here in Idaho. But he's excited to get started, and our focus really over the next probably 6 months to a year is really going to be establishing our method of receiving some of those complaints, what we will measure that against. And really, I think we've already got a guideline established. We've had some great voices in advocating for foster parents and advocating for youth that are in care. We've had a foster parents Bill of Rights that's been established. We recently have the Foster Youth Bill of Rights, or Kids in Care Bill of Rights. And so that's really going to be our guideline as we go forward for foster parents and youth that are in care, that we're going to do our best to educate both foster parents and youth that are in care on their Bill of Rights. And if they feel like those rights are not being honored by the department, by the agency that they are in care of, by their foster parents, if they're in care, whoever is in charge or assisting in their care, they can call our department and we can make sure that those things are being adhered to. So I'm really excited about being able to be a voice for the youth in the state. My previous job, I was a director of the Idaho Youth Challenge Academy. If some of you have heard of that, it's ran by the Idaho Military Division, but it's a residential school for youth that are at risk or who have dropped out of high school in the state. So they came and lived with us for 154 days, and then had an opportunity to focus on getting back on track in their schooling. And so I did that for 10 years before starting this position. I love serving the youth in the state. That's my passion. I was a foster parent myself. We ran out of room in our home, so we couldn't foster any more kiddos. We adopted one daughter out of foster care. And, just just hearing some of the experiences that she had prior to coming into our home, and living some of our own experience while being foster parents, I'm excited to help make some positive changes for youth in care, working with the department, and shedding some light on some of the things that those blind spots that were identified that we really just need to focus on. So I didn't want to take a lot of time necessarily talking about what we plan on doing, because we're still implementing some of those things. Brandon and I have some opportunity over the next couple of days to really establish some of our systems and going forward. So we're still fairly new office. In fact, we don't even have an office yet. We're working on it. So we meet in whatever room that we can find. But I wanted to open it up for questions. I'll repeat the questions so those that are viewing this can hear the question. But I wanted to really, instead of just spending a lot of time talking about the bill or the process, what we're doing going forward, I really wanted to answer some of the questions that might be burning on your mind, and as far as the establishment of our office. So if anybody has any questions, I'd love to take some questions. Yes?
So how would somebody...
Great question. I'm glad you asked that. So like I said, Sorry, yes. So the question was, how could somebody get a hold of our office, whether it be youth or anybody who's invested in youth? How can they file a complaint or get a hold of us? I added to it, sorry. So really the only reporting mechanism that we have right now, we do have a website. It's just hsso.idaho.gov. And there's a contact HSSO link on there. And if you click on that, it'll come directly to my email. And that's really the only system that we have right now to take complaints and start working on those. We plan on doing a lot more education, and we're establishing a database and a complaint system here in the next couple of days. It's in the procurement process. So we're really, and that will entail a lot more. So there'll be a complaint form on the website. It'll allow you to really just kind of talk about your case, talk about what's going on, and give us a baseline before we contact you back. But that's our complaint process right at the moment. Yes. So the question was, will it be mandated for facilities to have our information up so that the youth have that information on how to contact us? And it's not mandated in statute right now. I can tell you that's one of the first things that I plan on working on, hopefully enhance the statute that we currently have for our office. Having said that, part of our statute, part of our job is to educate. So we plan on going to the facilities. We plan on making sure to work with Jean Fisher and her team and over at Child and Family Services to make sure that they have all the youth in care have an opportunity to know who we are and how they can get a hold of us and what their rights are involving that. Written in statute is a no retaliation clause in that statute. It's a misdemeanor to retaliate against a youth who calls our office and files a complaint. And so we plan on making sure that they know their rights and being able to call us, and that caregivers know their, I guess, for lack of a better word, place, and making sure that the youth have that opportunity to call us. Yes. Sorry, let me grab this one up here, and then I'll grab yours. Yeah.
So my question is, a few years ago, my daughter was taken by CPS, and the person that represented CPS called my parents, and then when they got there, they wouldn't allow my daughter to go with them. They kept her, and then put them with CPS with a non-relative. This is a huge situation that
So the question, well, I'm not going to repeat all of that, but essentially it was a question about a case for those that are viewing that couldn't hear. So yes, you could contact our office and we could take a look at it. Absolutely. I'd get a hold of Brandon over here when we're done today. He can get your information and give you a call back. Yes. That's exactly why, and we can just take a look at it. There's no promises, of course, but we're absolutely be willing to take a look. Yes, over here. Oh, yes. It's it's on our website. So the website is hsso.idaho.gov. And so when you go to the website, there's a little box on there that says contact us. If you click on that, it'll go to an email that comes to me. So, yep. So the question was I'm horrible at that, repeating questions. I should have Brandon up here kicking me. Repeat that question. So the question was to repeat the website or the email. Second, yes? What is the essence of the bill? The essence of our bill? Essentially, and that's a good question because, when I talk to people, even when I said, I told people I was leaving my job at the academy to be an ombudsman, there's that ombuds what? Really an ombudsman is an advocate. If you look at the definition of an ombudsman, the question was, what is the essence of the bill? When you look at the definition of an ombudsman, there's several, but most people relate an ombudsman to a watchdog or somebody who sheds light. And I really think that we have an opportunity to do both. So in essence, we're the Health and Social Services Ombudsman Office is an independent agency that will investigate complaints into public agencies, not just health and welfare, any agency that takes public dollars that cares for youth, whether it be a residential care or whether it be as a foster parent or any other type of congregate care type of situation. Our office will take those complaints and make sure that the public agencies that are working with these youth are dealing with the youth appropriately, that they're following the youth right, and even foster parents. The Foster Parents Bill of Rights was established so that you as a foster parent have a voice in taking care of those kiddos that are in your home. So if you call and share that your rights have been violated or your obligations as a foster parent have been violated, then please call us, because those are also in the best interest of the youth as well. That's why they were established. So any of those, and then of course youth in care, if their rights have been violated, our office, the essence of our office and the essence of the bill is that we review and investigate those violations of the rights. And then we take those, whether it be a single case or whether it be congregated data into, hey, look, this seems to be a problem in this case and this case. And now we've got like 10 or 15 cases that this same type of issue is a problem. Maybe we identify as one of those black holes that we're not serving youth in the best way possible. So we also have the mandate to educate and recommend legislation to the legislatures on making some changes, or recommend changes to Department of Health and Welfare or whatever agency is taking care of those kiddos to make changes in their policy, if it's just a policy change, to better ensure care for these youth. So the essence of the bill, though, if I was to narrow it down, is to be an advocate and a voice for the most vulnerable kids, most vulnerable population in Idaho. So, which we're excited about doing. Yes. Appreciate that. Thank you. Any other questions? I still got 4 minutes. We can keep going. Yes. So am I. So the question was, well, the excitement was shared about the kids, 0 kids being in the Airbnbs, and the question was, how was that solved? I do have a Gene here from the department. I think only shed a little bit of light on that as far as kids not being in congregate or the Airbnbs. I know that we have a what do you call it? A residential facility in Payette right now that is a facility that is staffed by people who can work with these youth, that have experience working with these youth. So it is a residential facility where those kiddos can go into congregate care. We still have congregate care facilities. They're just not Airbnbs, and they're staffed by appropriate level of workers that have worked with kids with trauma. I think that was one of the biggest problems with the Airbnbs, was that some of them were being staffed by temporary, service agencies, temporary personnel agencies, and people that had no experience working with those kids. Being a foster parent myself, when I saw some of that happening, how can they do that with no training? So I was pretty excited about no more kids, and I know Gene is as well. Did you have anything to add on that, Gene, as far as how we solve that problem with no more kids in Airbnb? Yeah. 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 So some great efforts, I believe, on health and welfare's part. And when I was at the Youth Challenge Academy, I challenged my staff. So I started there about almost 8 years ago as a director. And my first time meeting with the staff, I told them that one of my command directives is what they call them in the military, but my chief's intent was that we developed systems and models that other youth challenge academies around the state can follow because they're best practices. And if we were working on doing that, then we were doing all the right things that we needed to do for kids that were in our charge. And really, I think that that's where we're at, that opportunity portion of the crisis, is that we're at that point in the state of developing models and systems that other states can follow. I truly believe that, in the next 5 to 10 years, we can have the best child welfare system in the country. Do I think we're there right now? Absolutely not. Do I think we have opportunities? Absolutely. And do I think we can get to where other states look at us and start sending people over and say, we want to follow what you do? Absolutely, 100%, especially with our new leadership that we have, especially with the legislators' focus right now that we have on taking care of these kiddos, really establishing new law, new policies and procedures that really focus on and narrowing down the focus on taking care of kids that are in care. So I think we're probably there. Are we there? I could keep answering questions all day, but we put that picture back up.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, join me in thinking. I think we could do a better job in thanking Trevor, and not just for taking on this role, but taking on a giant leap, because creating this entire office is a grand experiment to see what works in Idaho and what works in the system. And when we reached out to Trevor to say, hey, would you want to share a little bit about what you're up to? You said, sure, how long do I have? So I, again, want to thank you and ask everybody, again, to join me, and thank you for being so open. So we are going to shift focus just a bit. So in about 10 minutes, Governor Little is going to join us for signing his proclamation and making a few comments. But before we get there, after thinking of all the celebrations that we had last year from really big pieces of legislation passing, and again, the lawmakers heard and listened to you, to the community, to youth, and were very forceful, especially about the state requiring the state to close Airbnbs, passing that bill unanimously, and then creating the ombudsman's office. These are not little lifts, and so much of this work is thanks to a couple of lawmakers who have just been so dedicated to improving foster care systems for their entire career. We have two lawmakers that I wanted to specifically thank. First up is Representative Britt Raybould. Britt is actually presenting a bill in committee right now and was unable to come and join us. So if you have a chance to see Representative Raybould today, thank her for all of the work that she did. Britt Raybould was actually key to helping write the ombudsman's language, and not just including foster care. She was the one that encouraged the bill to say, why don't we expand it to all? Second, I wanted to thank Senator Melissa Wintrow, who also helped sponsor the bills that helped create the ombudsman and closed Airbnbs. And Melissa is here, and so I wanted to bring her up and say a big thank you from the community that I know she has been so involved in and listening to. So if you want to just take a couple minutes, I'm going to go talk to and then if you would like it, that's
I would love it.
yes.
So you give me the hint. So you give me the high sign when you want me to do that.
Sorry, I am just letting know. I see a couple media and cameras here, and so I'm going to help make sure that they have time to get set up.
What do you mean they're not already set up for my words?
While I'm working on that, definitely Representative Wintrow, thank you for being such an amazing champion to on this work for foster youth and kids.
You're so sweet. So, thank you. That's so kind. So Christine and I were just talking about, of course, our most important speaker is going to be in the back, and we got to get the media ready for him. But it was so nice for her to allow me to have a little space to just welcome you to the Statehouse and thank you for being here and all the work that we have done together to enrich the community and the services for children in Idaho, right? I got to tell you, I came to this work I was elected in 2014, and I got my first taste pretty quick when I was sitting in Judiciary and Rules, and I got to meet Brian McCauley. And initially, as a freshman legislator, I wasn't quite sure what was going on, but boy, through his patience and many others, I learned quickly that sometimes systems aren't always operating the way we want them to, and that it's really important to go and listen and learn. I've been to citizen review panel committee hearings. Many people have called me. There were many times when guardian ad litem, you name it, said, hey, I want to talk to you and help you understand. I went and visited places. And I have to tell you, experiencing things firsthand and listening to people on the phone and in person is the best way to understand the real ways systems implicate people, right, and impact them. And I think sometimes we are in this very sterile building and we're talking about things up here, politics and ideologies and policy, and we don't always remember to connect with the real people and the human lives that we're impacting. And that is absolutely our responsibility every day, to make sure what we say in committee and on the floor reflects the lives, the beating hearts, right? The love, the compassion, the struggles, the challenges that everyone has, right? And I feel like over time, I really want to recognize Brian and his family, and he has really pulled me along. He would put things in front of me, check this out. He would go on office visits. He would advocate. There was a time we were in an office in tears, just trying to find the best way through for families. And I have to say, I want to thank everyone in this room and outside of it that has really dedicated, rolled up those sleeves and made sure that we are doing our absolute best for parents, foster parents, children, uncles, aunts, kin, everyone, because that's what matters. So thank you all for bringing me along. I'm going to do my best job to continue to represent your voices and make sure that we are doing what is right, what's compassionate, right? And that we're listening to each and every one of you, remembering the hearts, the minds, and the souls that are behind the policies we make. With that, I think it's time for me to introduce my governor. And we know that Governor Brad Little has been a champion in this area. And he loves families, he loves foster families, and he loves kids. And we see it in his priorities. So it is an honor. It is an absolute honor to introduce our Governor, Brad Little.
Well, good morning. I do have a official proclamation from the Office of the Governor. I do a few of those, but first I want to visit a little bit about this. I think almost everybody knows Alex Adams, at the back of the room, who's my new director of health and welfare, and is kind of in charge of leading our efforts. For years, we collectively, when I talk about we, I talk about people in this room, the legislature, the state of Idaho, knew we had some significant problems. I can't remember how many OPE reports and other audits there were, and we just weren't meeting the needs of these most vulnerable children that we had. And so it kind of took place at the time. When you're a new governor, you have a lot of things going on, but you always have some things kind of in the back of your mind. We got to get our arms around this. And so let me tick off a few of the things that we've done to infuse resources and efforts into our foster program under the Department of Health and Welfare. Just since last summer, we increased from 74 to 93 the homes per 100 children. That's a ratio that's one of the best ways to measure your efficacy in handling these problems, to make sure that the placements are the right placement at the right place for the right child. We've opened an Office of Faith-Based Initiative to basically utilize a resource that's been helping children forever, and to better coordinate that with what we're doing in the foster care area. We've focused the Department of Health and Welfare on outcomes, which is always a good thing in government, to make sure you do a lot of things that you kind of instinctively know are the right thing to do, but it's always good for everybody to focus on a number or a something to get there, and that's what we're doing as far as requirements. We've obviously built partnerships with the people who have been working on foster care forever to support parents, and offered paid parental leave to foster parents, free admittance to our state parks, free passes to the state museum. But it's like, what can we do in every way, shape, and form to show the people that make those incredible sacrifices, do that literally the Lord's work every day that we appreciate him here in Idaho. We launched a foster parent helpline to placed foster parents that's available to call in the evenings and weekends. We limited the use of non-home living settings such as congregate care and eliminated the use of short-term rentals. I'm glad we got that checked off the box. We reinforced Idaho's commitment by implementing the foster parent newsletter, foster family forums, a foster parent bill of rights, expanded training for staff, and new transparency rules. We hired and newly confirmed our ombudsman for social service that's focusing on this issue. I knew Trevor Sparrow for his incredible work with Idaho Youth Challenge up in Pierce. I don't know that living in maybe the least populated area of the state to the most populated area was a shock for Trevor. But I tell you, if he does as good a job in this job as he did helping those troubled youths up at the Youth Challenge, we will have succeeded in my goal and the legislature's goal in establishing this position. I'm pleased with where we've made, but we still have ways to go. We have more to get done. Alex told me that his budget hearing last week went well, and we've got a request to infuse health and welfare with staff to do what we can to prevent these kids from ever having to get into this situation. You know, the old an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. What we can do to identify these kids early and what we can do to help them and you know, provide those services at the right time, at the right place to keep them from going in the system. We need to invest in now through prevention everything we can to keep that from happening. We expand the hours. I mentioned our foster parent helpline to 24/7. So, because sometimes problems with these kids happens at non-working hours, as you well know, and we're going to increase the payments. Those are all pending appropriation requests that are bouncing around here. And with all of that, we still have some kids out of state that we want to bring back. We want to put them back in Idaho under our supervision and do all we can to make that connection between their communities, between their families, and give these kids a much brighter future. Everyone in this room has been part of that, and I appreciate it very much. So with that, I have an official proclamation from the Office of the Governor. Whereas there are more than 2,600 Idaho children who have spent time in foster care throughout 2024 due to abuse, neglect, and abandonment. And whereas the safety and well-being of children in foster care is a priority for the state of Idaho and its citizens. And whereas it is essential to ensure Idaho's children are served by foster care, grow up in supportive families, and receive help to heal, build lasting relationship, and reach their full potential. And whereas providing targeted and effective intervention can safely prevent the need for foster care and ensure children who suffer any kind of maltreatment are not harmed again. And whereas in order for Idaho to adopt both short-term and long-term improvements benefiting Idaho's children in foster care, it is imperative to bring together Idahoans impacted by foster care, community advocates and partners, and Idaho's elected officials and agencies to identify priorities going forward. Now, therefore, I, Brad Little, Governor of the State of Idaho, do hereby proclaim February 26, 2025 to be Foster Care Awareness Day in Idaho, and I encourage all Idaho citizens to recognize this special observance. Come on, Melissa. Well, it'll hurt your next election, but you can get your picture. You can get your picture taken with me anyway. Come on, Alex.
You're so kind. Here, we'll put that down there. How's that?
Ready, 3, 2.
Is that your good side?
I don't have a good side. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, Governor Little, as he's leaving. That was really exciting to hear. Seriously, thanks to the governor helping make sure that foster care is a top priority is how we've been able to make so much progress. So this is an exciting day. We do have the signed proclamation. We'll leave up here if anybody would like to check it out. We do have a morning packed full of presentations. Our next presentation will be at 10:15, so we'll take about a 5-minute break to get set up, and we'll be learning about safer communities with a group who is talking about how we can all come together to better serve families in need. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. Thanks. I'm going to turn this off for a second.
When it turns red, you're on. Okay. So we'll turn it off for now, but when you guys.
All right, we're gonna get everybody coming back into the room here. So if we can get folks' attention. Just getting through, I think, the excitement of the governor being here. Really great coverage. I saw several local news stations. So keep an eye out on local news to be able to share it with your family and say, hey, I was there for that. So we are going to get moving into our next presentation that's really talking about partnering with families, individuals, and communities, and it will be led by Lutheran Community Services with a panel of really amazing and knowledgeable folks. So join me in welcoming our next presentation.
Thank you, Christine. Okay, is this working? Great. And thank you for putting on this day of bringing us all together. My name is Jessica Rowine. I'm the District Director for Lutheran Community Services Northwest. And I'm here today to share with you a prevention program that we brought to Idaho in 2020. And I'm also going to we have some folks I'm going to introduce to you all to in a minute so that you can hear from the folks that are making things happen and that are figuring out this work of prevention through community. I've got this thing too. I forgot. I can change this. Okay. So in 2020, Lutheran Community Services brought Safe Families for Children to Idaho. Safe Families is an evidence-based program. It exists in over 40 states in the nation. And it focuses on child and family well-being. So it's about bringing together community to support families before they enter foster care, before things spin out of control, before they go over the waterfall where so many challenges just mount up that it becomes just untenable for families and their children. We actually had to pass legislation in 2021 to bring Safe Families to allow parents to place their children with our host homes. And so far we have served 91 families. And we've got these great little postcards you guys will see here that show kind of like what we've done since we opened our doors here. So what do? We mobilize communities of faith throughout the Treasure Valley to host children in volunteer homes and to provide a network of support for families in need. So we come alongside families in whatever way makes sense for that family, because every family has unique needs. And the whole entire intent is to keep children safe, to keep families together. Because what do? We know that outcomes are better for children when they stay connected to their family and they stay with their family and they stay out of systems. So the intent is to try to, for families where it's appropriate, to try to step in and help them along the way. And all these pictures here are families we've served, so cute pictures. One of the beautiful things about this model is that there's a volunteer role for everybody. Taking in children is not for everybody. But, as a recent empty nester, I can say that my husband said, do not bring home children. But if you want to be a family coach, I saw Val and Brian over there, and they have hand-in-hand mentoring that they support. Coaching is an important piece of helping parents kind of navigate systems of support and get back on their feet. We have resource friends providing cribs and diapers and transportation for families. And then family friends. I'm looking at Emily holding little Joel back there. Classic example of a family friend. Emily's on our staff. But you come together and you hold the little baby while the parents can do something really important. So it's about just coming together. So I'm going to pause here because what I really want you to do is hear from families that we have served and a family that is a volunteer family that has come alongside them a few years ago when this happened. So I'd like to introduce these two families to you. And before I forget, I think I saw, is that Sage back there? Hey, Sage Dixon. I want to thank Sage Dixon for being a champion for our work. He's with the Office of Faith-Based Initiatives and has really helped us. He helped us pass that initial legislation in 2021 along with Idaho Voices, and then has really helped us partner with Department of Health and Welfare to do the background checks for our families that are serving other families. So anyways, thank you, Sage. So we have Janina and Travis Trone, and we have Larry and Destiny Littlebird, And if you guys would turn on your mics, so if you wouldn't mind. And my first question for you all is just could you just introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your families?
Hi, everybody. I'm Travis Troen, and this is my wife, Janina Troen. We are a family of 5 children, with one of those being on the way. And we've decided a while back, to be able to help, with the community and Safe Families. As one of our neighbors was involved with Safe Families and brought us to that. And that was quite liberating for us, because we had it on our hearts for quite some time to be able to give back to the community in some way. And so we found this and dove right in. Thank you very much.
Hello. I'm Larry Littlebird, my wife Destiny Littlebird. We have 4 kids. Safe Families, they put us in contact with Travis and them. And when we were homeless, and they really, along the way, helped us. We got her in place and everything. And Travis is amazing, and so is Janine.
Fabulous. Thank you all. Thanks, Michelle. And the little baby back there, Joel, is the newest little baby of Larry and Destiny's. So maybe, Larry, when you first came to Safe Families, you and Destiny walked in our doors. It was in May, I remember, because you guys came in and you had your kiddos with you. What challenges were you facing? Like, why did you come to us, and what were you looking for? What was going on in your life at that time?
So we had just got back from Oklahoma, and we had our car broke down over there, and we had to get a rental vehicle. We came back here to see if there was any way we could get on our feet. We were previously homeless due to construction in Garden City. We lived off of Adams and whatnot, but when our car broke down, we had to give up the rental, and we called you guys, and we were looking for a way to house the kids so we wouldn't be on the streets or have to give them up to CPS.
Destiny, did you want to say something? No? Okay. Make sure you have a voice too. So when you were coming to us, because I remember that it was, you were saying kind of like you felt like you didn't know what to do at that point because of your kiddos, and your own experiences and the fear kind of associated with what that might mean for your family. Might you share a little bit about that?
I mean, so we had gone down to Oklahoma. We at this point had been homeless, 3 years? 3 or 4. And we went down to Oklahoma on a promise of a job and a place to live. While we were down there, the guy did not hold up his end of the bargain. Like Larry mentioned, our car broke down. We were at our lowest we had been in all the years. Not sure where to turn. I mean, we had 3 kids at the time. We didn't know where to turn. And so I got on Google and started just searching around and, praying to God that there's something that allows us to keep our kids.
And so what did we do for you? How did Safe Families help?
So we reached out to Safe Families, and they were able to place us initially with one family, and until the Trojans here were able to step in, and they helped us out with placement for our kids for 3 months.
They even picked us up, or picked the kids up, It was amazing.
Yeah. Travis, what was your volunteer role, and how did you guys get connected?
Yeah, so something to add to that, and as you can see in this photo right here, I think this might have been, was this day one?
Yeah.
This was day one. The Littlebirds came over and met with Bo and Kayla Isham. You can see Kayla holding the child on the left, and of course Janina, my wife, on the right. And so a lot of the neighborhood kids are all together there. And this was day one. So this was a very emotional day, I think, for the Littlebirds. It was, I think, very tough. Larry and I had a pretty heartfelt conversation, if you will, about, how he was feeling about this whole thing, and but also, mixed emotions, because, he's feeling like he's handing over his children, but he's making that decision, right? And Destiny as well. And, but at the same time, knowing that they're going into a safe home, and that they're going to be there waiting as soon as the little birds could get their feet back on the ground, which is the ultimate goal for them, is, hey, get a car, get jobs, get a house. And those were all those things that they could accomplish in that 3-month period. They did so well. It was absolutely amazing with the support from Safe Families and the entire community, the churches that are involved. And they've done amazing things in that time period to get their feet back on the ground and ultimately get their kids back into their own home, which is really amazing. And I feel like they should, probably have a little bit of a round of applause right here because they've done so well. It was a really tough time for them, but they came through so strong because of the community that's involved, specifically Safe Families.
And we were able to accomplish more in that 3 months that Safe Families stepped in and helped with our kids than we had in the 3 or 4 years prior. And that was thanks to them taking our kids.
I think it's hard to imagine the fear of putting your kids in a place that you don't know. And I think the unique thing about Safe Families is for the families to meet and to build a relationship and to know each other so that over time, you have that trust and that confidence that they're being loved on and cared for, and that you can visit them anytime you want, or have video calls at night to say good night. Those things that keep families whole and connected and supported. And so that was kind of one of the beautiful things that I saw, across, is that you guys over time kind of built that relationship. I'm curious as how, with the kind of growing stronger piece that you mentioned, Travis, how have you seen your family grow stronger? Like what has changed from the day that you had walked in and where you guys are today?
We are in a place, and we have more community than we did before. Since Safe Family's been with us, we have more friends. We can be around. We can go barbecues too. We can call. Our kids are around more children. The environment's better. It's still stressful, but I mean that comes with the life. But I would say that there's a lot more positivity and a lot more amazing people around. That's what's changed, and our kids can grow up with that.
Yeah. How about as a volunteers, kind of that side of things, taking in kiddos to a big family already, and you guys were working with your neighbors to try to make it happen. But what was it like for you to see that impact, to see families kind of get, because I remember even trying to get Larry and Destiny out to visit y'all and to visit, and to visit the kids, because it was pretty far to go.
You want to say something on that?
Yes. While they were going through that, while you guys, were going through a lot of the, who can we turn to, and how is this going to affect our kids and all these things. We over the last couple years have been thinking about, well, what about those children of the world that don't have the love and the care and the security, or that are seriously in need. And kind of long story short, God landed us right where the Ishams are, so they're our neighbors. It just so happens that, Kayla is the kind of the spearheader of Lutheran Church that partners with Safe Families. And she told, she brought up Larry and Destiny's story and said, hey, do you want to take this on? We'll tag team. And, at the time, we already have, so I was pregnant with our second or third kid at the time. You lose track after a while. So I was, I was feeling very overwhelmed because we are growing our family. But the reality of the situation was, there's never going to be a right time. There's never going to be a perfect moment to jump in and help. And we figured we're already in this phase of our life raising these children. What's more kids to help raise? What's more adding chaos to the mix? You do the diapers, you do the feeding and all the things, and if it helps other families, might as well do it. So, and it's funny because that night before this picture, my 2-year-old was having night terrors and at 3:00 in the morning, and I was not in a good place. And right around the same time, that's when Kayla was telling me about Larry and Destiny's story, and I'm like, okay, well, I can see where God is leading us to, and I guess we're just gonna do it. We're gonna figure it out and let God lead the way.
And I think, fast forward, a couple years from there, and to see where the little birds are at now, it's just heartwarming to see them get their family back together, get their feet on the ground, and it makes everything all worth it. Those late nights that she's talking about where the kids are sick or screaming or whatever it is, and lack of sleep and all of those things that, she was referring to, but it makes it all worth it in the end.
What's the role of the church and the community kind of with you all? Like, did they support you throughout this?
Oh, yes, very heavily. We really rely on the church a lot, just through their grace and all the meals, all the, do you need anything? And I'm always like, diapers and wipes, please, just all the diapers and wipes. And, but even just, we can't pick them up. Can you help us pick them up? Or can you just help us, navigate through this, whatever really it was. They're always there to lend a hand, whether it was like a meal or some sort of traveling type of thing, timing issue. If they, I'll take your kids for a little bit, go and be with them, that kind of thing. So they're just always there to fill in that gap, whatever we need. So it's fantastic. I don't think we would ever be able to feel confident enough to jump in on our own if it wasn't for Safe Families.
Yeah, I think that was definitely something that helped us to make the decision, because like Janina was saying a moment ago, there's always a reason why or a reason why you talk yourself out of getting involved before actually getting involved. Once you just make that decision to jump in, Safe Families and the community and the churches that are involved, they are just that, a community. As even today, we're here today only because people from the church were able to watch our kids and to be able to make that happen. And that's across the board. So when we have, other kids in our home or even our own kids, the community is able to come together and help. And that's an amazing thing.
Larry and Destiny, if with other families that are facing similar challenges, what would you want to share with them about this experience that you've been through and, and how you were supported?
Be creative. Be creative with what's going on. If you get out there and see yourself putting a couple $100 every 2 days into food, go get, be creative. Go get a camp stove. Go get a propane bottle. Always be on your feet. You know what I mean? Being in that situation, it's hard. I understand depression can get you. All this stuff can get you because you're like, I'm not being a good parent. I'm not doing this. But you got to be creative. And then when it comes to Safe Families, use your resources. Go to Safe Families, talk to them, because you guys have been amazing. 110%. You guys will always have my support and my family's.
Add anything, Destiny?
Yeah, it's fine. I think I just add that, what got me and Larry through everything is we always looked at, the positive, like what, where can we go from here? Yes, we're at our absolute lowest right now, like when we lost everything and we had a rental car and it seemed like nowhere to turn, but we never gave up. We always looked for an answer. We reached out to our resources and took the help when we could receive it. And that's just what I tell families in similar situations is, don't ever give up. There's always an answer. It may take a little digging, but you'll find an answer.
Thank you. I think it's interesting too. I think about, you picture, kind of what families need that support. And, it's any family who's isolated. When I grew up, I had very young parents, and those parents worked, and they put me with neighbors, right? Because there wasn't another choice. Most of us are in that situation at some point, especially if you don't have family. And so it's coming up with ways to connect with community to make it happen. Yep. And if you don't have community, I think that's where things can really change. I want to save a little bit of time. My last question, I think, for Travis and Janina, what would you tell others about considering becoming volunteers? And what that, what would you say about that, family, supporting families?
Yeah, absolutely. If your heart's driven that way, so my wife and I had been driven that way, and we've always volunteered, whether it be with various churches or, we took a trip to North Carolina in our younger years and helped rebuild after a hurricane and all of these things. And so just finding a way to get involved, if your heart's leading you that way, as I kind of said earlier, there's always going to be a reason or excuse. You're going to try to talk yourself out of it. If you just set that aside and say, hey, look, God is going to take care of this for me. If your heart's being led that way, one thing that I always try to remember is Matthew 25:40, where Jesus says, whatever you did to one of the least of these, whatever you do for one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you do unto me. So we try to remember that we want to be able to open our doors. If you would open your door for Jesus or God, do it for the children, do it for the people that need it, because that's what God calls us to do.
Thank you. And you guys might have some questions here from the audience here in a minute, but I'm gonna run through this really quickly. Oh, going the wrong way. We have tons of cute pictures of families that we've supported, and there are happy moments where families are having babies, and if you don't have a place to put your 2 or 3 other kids, and you need some support in the middle of the night when you go into labor, and then there's families that are just really struggling for whatever challenges that are facing them. So. We have these postcards here, but this shows you clearly the difference between foster care and safe families. And not that there's not a place for foster care, but there's a lot of families that if we were to come in before things get out of control, that we can help keep families together. Everything we do is community and faith-led. It's all led by donations right now, donations from our individuals, donations from churches, and small grants, and funding from partners like Idaho Children's Trust Fund and other entities. But the cost between kind of what we do and once if a child enters foster care, it's remarkably different, and that doesn't even touch over the lifetime of a child, because if you remove a child from the family, then you're also managing kind of all of the mental health and the long-term costs that are associated with that. And as I said before, this is kind of before abuse or neglect occurs. So this is when families are doing the best they can, and they need some support from community. This is what our churches have done to date. 726 nights. Those are 24-hour overnights of safe temporary care for children. That's deflecting upwards of 167 kids that are not in foster care by helping those families. We have our coaching, over 3,000 hours of one-on-one coaching, calling a parent and saying, what do you need? How can I help you? Or are you okay today? And helping them find that creative next step is trying to figure out, okay, where can I go to figure out something? We currently have 8 churches and over 200 volunteers. We need more. We are constantly at our capacity, and we're looking to build more community throughout the Treasure Valley to support these families. So if you'd like to engage, there is no faith requirement. You do not have to attend church. You do not have to be part of that. However, that is where we recruit our volunteers from, and we serve under our ministry leads, but we serve all, and we welcome all in whatever way makes sense for you in your life. And then we have the child care hours. We have a lot of you all know the ICCP, and finding daycare is really challenging right now for families. We've provided over 2,000 hours of gap fill. So that's a parent picking up an Uber shift on a Tuesday night and not having a place for their children. And so we'll have other families step in and provide that babysitting for that night, and then reunite them with their family, or take them to school the next morning so that the parents can actually sleep a little bit. So it can look a lot of different ways, but it's really a lot of gap fill for families that need that support. Our team is here. Raise your, I don't know where, the baby might be out, but we have Josie and Lizette, raise your hands over there, our Master of Social Work interns from Boise State University. We have Michelle Batten, who's our program manager, Emily Erickson and Brooke, is Brooke here somewhere, McNerlin. I just want to mention that please come up and see us. We're at a booth upstairs. We'd love to talk and answer any questions that you might have. And I think we have about 15 minutes left if you have any questions for our families up here. I'd love to entertain them. One way in the back.
I kind of came into it backwards, kind of realizing, like, wait a minute, and comment on my face, got me thinking about,
Yeah.
oh, wait, we need to move up.
Yep.
So, but, because I still have a foster, I've been able to help with, things or doing small things that help on the edges. I don't feel like now I can't do more, but sometimes that really,
Thank you for sharing that. So there was for those who couldn't hear, just saying that it was coming from foster care as a foster parent and still a foster parent, but leaning in as a volunteer and as a resource volunteer so that if we could find ways to come alongside families before, and I remember the delivery of Christmas stockings, thank you so much for the kiddos who might not wake up to a Christmas stocking and those small things to let families know they're loved on. So appreciated. Another question. Yes. Where do you take referrals from? So we take referrals from anywhere. Parents can self-refer. So like Larry and Destiny, you guys just walked in our doors and said, hey, we need some help. But also we partner with any kind of agencies, the hospitals, our counseling centers, the schools. Anybody, if you know a family that needs help, reach out to us. It's best to reach out with the family because doing it together empowers that family to be asking for help. But you can also make referrals and say, hey, could you reach out? I think this family is in need. And Michelle, as our intake coordinator, will immediately call that family and find out what it is that they're challenged with and how we might be able to help them. So it's a really simple process. We have, there's a QR code on our booklet. It's like, what do you need? When do you need it? And then we make the phone call. We don't ask parents to fill out. The last thing a parent needs is a long application when you're dealing with something like homelessness or putting food on the table. So what we do is we will call that family and find out what it is we can do for you. And we do not require until we know we can help filling out paperwork. Yes.
My name's Sheila Weaver. I worked in foster care for several years, and I really wanted to say thank you to the vulnerability that is shown on the panel today and your willingness to be here. It means a lot. It's not easy to sit up there and do what you're doing right now. A couple questions, just a comment, I guess. What you're doing is really invaluable, and during my time in foster care, this would have made a difference for a lot of families that I'm sitting here thinking about right now. But two questions is, do you ever find, are there families or types of referrals that aren't appropriate or that you don't advocate fit for your agency? And then second, like, what are your dreams? Like, what does the future of this look like for you? Like, what do you want?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great questions, Sheila. So Sheila, first just acknowledge the courage it takes to stand up and tell a person your story. So thank you all. It's really powerful. And so the first question was, are there referrals that we get where we can't come alongside families that are not an appropriate fit? And I'm looking at Michelle because she deals with this all the time. Do you want to come up and talk about that? Put you on the spot. But you do this. You're used to this.
Not from a podium. Really, we think our only limit is, can your neighbor take care of this kid? Meaning, is there any extreme behaviors? And that would be hard because these really are volunteers. Like, we provided training and we provide ongoing support while children are there. We help understand, like, why are the kids not eating at the dinner table? Trauma-informed care. But that being said, they jumped in, right? And so if there are extreme behaviors, then that's our limit. And in that model, the place where people enter is that childcare. We're not just entering at the resource friends. It's really the whole thing of wrapping around. So does the family need that childcare and that hosting, whether it's 1 hour or 3 months? And do we have volunteers who can handle that child at that time? And then the only other limit is how many volunteers we have. Because when we're at capacity, we're at capacity. Mm-hmm. So that's our only piece. Would you say anything else?
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. And I think Larry and Destiny, I mean, with your kiddos, there's a lot like healthcare needs that we kind of had to come in and help with, some educational needs. There were a variety of needs but we just figured it out.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys were able to quickly get us help, but I mean, it would face the challenges. Our oldest son, he has a few disabilities. I'm not going to go into much detail, but he has a few disabilities, and so, separating the kids was the best option. Having him one-on-one with the family, and then at the time our youngest two with the Trojans, it just worked out. But you guys were able to find a solution to help, and really quickly too.
Yeah. So if there's higher needs, then we might that individualized care or finding a family that can give more attention to that child and maybe away from the other children for that short period of time would work really well. But we just have conversations around what do you think and what would work best and how do we make this okay for you and safe for everybody, safe for the volunteers and safe for the families that are placing their kiddos at the same time. And then Sheila, your second question was, what are our hopes and dreams? That's a big one. Hopes and dreams. We started this with no support and no funding, and one staff person, and we just kind of said, okay, how do we know this is something that could work in Idaho. We know our churches have the heart for this. We know our communities can come in, and it's been really inspiring to see how much it has grown in the Treasure Valley and what the potential is. I mean, we would love to see this statewide. We would love to see prevention funding. I spend, woohoo, I'm with you, Kim. I spend so much of my time just writing small grants and trying to raise, donations. But if we could get true prevention funding to make this happen, I imagine what we could do, because we have so many, like Michelle said, the capacity, it's like we can only screen the number of volunteers that we have staff. We have 4 staff and 2 interns managing a pretty large network. And so we would love to see this in Horseshoe Bend and Wilder and Mountain Home and all of these communities that have fewer resources, but we need staff to do that. And so we would love to, potentially go, figure that out. Yeah, thanks for asking. And yeah, Kim.
So for those in the audience that may be interested and are connected to a faith community, how would they get there?
Yeah, first thing is just reach out to Brooke McNerlin. She's our volunteer and church coordinator. And so she's out in the community all the time. So reach out and we'll come out and talk to you. We have Amy Karen is here from Stonehill Church. She's our ministry lead from Stonehill. She'd be a great person to talk to about what it looks like and how it is activated on the ground. The Trones, what's your church?
We're currently at Grace Bible Church, and I know that's actually something we have to talk to Brooke about as well, to hopefully get Safe Families plugged in. And I kind of wanted to piggyback off of what the lady was saying at the back there, just to really encourage everybody, because you know, they say raising one kid takes a whole village. And so when we're talking about the children of the world, it really does take a lot, not just for the families that are in need, but of course also the volunteers. I mean, like I said, if it wasn't for Safe Families, we wouldn't have this confidence. So getting the word out there. So the fact that we are establishing a foster care awareness is amazing. I want to keep pushing that word out there that, you know, we need the support of the entire community, because these kids, they can only fend for themselves, right? They can't fend for themselves. So we need to back them up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Janina. And just like there's a volunteer role for everyone, oh, and Sage, there's also a church role for everybody, right? Some churches might take this on as a ministry of their church and dive all in, and maybe you're attending a partner church and then you want to participate. And we have churches that have older congregations and that are going to be doing parent cafes, which is kind of safe places for parents to connect. So there's unique ways that everyone can lean in. It doesn't always have to look the same. Sage. Yeah, I encourage you to reach out to Sage Dixon back there as in his new role. He's really well connected across the state. Any other questions? Yes.
So what's the barrier to getting prevention?
That is a good question. And one I'm not ready to answer. I think for us, it's building partnerships and trust. We needed to show over time that this could work, that we had those numbers to show that we are actually having a powerful impact. And now that we're 4 years in, we really have this track record and a timeline of showing this powerful impact and having stories from our families up here. So we're, you know, and now with the new director of health and welfare and with the legislature, you know, I floated an idea of a tax credit with Sage. I'd love to see maybe an Idaho tax credit like Florida does. They have a strengthening families tax credit that goes directly to support funds like this, you know, or getting prevention funding to be able to directly provide that overnight safe hosting for families. So we'd love to have a conversation. Last questions? Okay. Thank you all. We're just a little bit before the hour, and I believe, I don't know if there's Christine, I don't know if she's in here, if there's a break. Oh, Craig's over there. What's the schedule?
We'll be back at 11:15.
Okay, so we'll back at 11:15. Thank you all so much for taking the time to share your story. We'll see you at 11:15. Come up, and if you want to talk with our parents, I encourage you to do so. I wish I could speak. Yeah.
Oh, you guys did great.
Oh, thank you.
I think you know what you're talking about.
Doing it every day, right? Where we're doing it along the way, but you guys do day in and day out.
He's like slippery slope.
All of a sudden you're gonna have
Oh,
so yeah, we're just gonna keep this thing going. I actually do it well.
yes, yes.
So I actually do it. You guys think it's real nice. Yeah.
Directly in the middle makes it a little hard to control. So either to the side over here or over on that side.
Okay, guys, this side okay? Yes. All right. So, Cynthia, I want you next to me. Charlie, and she's here to talk about kitchen. Basically, what it says there is supports and gaps. Thank you. Yeah, just wherever. They'll introduce themselves. Challenges and complexities. This lady, another lady, so she's covering two spots with one person.
That's us. That's us. And he gets paid to look at it. And all of the mics are working, right?
Correct. You'll just have to
Okay, he's gonna show us how to flip our mics on.
So at the bottom of the mic, there'll be a little switch. You just move it up to turn the mic on. And you'll notice that the red light will turn on up at the top when the mic is on.
And then flip it down.
Flip it back down. Try, of course, it's gonna get yes, and then just move it away from you.
Okay. So when you're not actually speaking, just move the mic away, but leave it on. I don't see yours on, Shannon. Oh, you want mine on? Yeah, just leave them on and just move the mic away when you're not talking. He said.
All right, everybody. If everyone could take a seat. So for those who don't know me, my name is Craig Peterson. I helped organize this amazing event for our community. I'm the one that may or may not have responded to your emails, and I apologize. But for our next presentation, it's really an honor to introduce Charlie Hahn. Charlie has been doing incredible work for our communities for so many years. And today, she's brought with her a panel, and it's really just to explore the challenges and complexities of kinship care, including insights from caregivers of children, both within and outside of the foster care system. So if you guys could please give me a warm welcoming to Charlie.
Thank you, and good morning. My name is Charlie Hahn, and I am a Grand Voice Caregiver Advocate with Generations United. And that is a national nonprofit dedicated to enhancing the lives of children, youth, and older adults through intergenerational collaboration. Generations United also works to support kinship families. This is grandparents and other relatives that have stepped up to raise children when their parents cannot. Across the United States, about 2.5 million children are growing up in grand families, where a grandparent, another relative, or a close family friend is raising them without parents in the home. Here in Idaho, in 2024, approximately 10,000 children were being raised by relatives, according to the Annie E. Casey Foundation. So putting that into perspective, for every one child in formal foster care in Idaho, 13 are being raised by relatives outside the system. That means most kinship caregivers are stepping up without the same resources and support that the formal foster families receive. The number of kinship caregivers is growing every year, and this includes grandparents, aunts, uncles, and other family members. Unfortunately, the support for these families is not keeping pace. That's something that we really hope to see change. Our panel today is made up of kinship caregivers, and we're here to discuss the supports, the services, and the gaps that impact kinship families. For the purpose of today's discussion, we will use the terms grand family and kinship families interchangeably. On this panel, we have a great-grandmother, an uncle, and a grandmother, each of whom stepped into the caregiving role in a different way. I will now ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves and share how they became a grand family. Cynthia?
Yes, my name is Cynthia Teeples.
A little closer.
My name is Cynthia Teeples. I'm now raising my two great-grandsons, 1 and 3, because of the choices that my granddaughter made. I'm here for them. So,
thank you. Stephen?
My name is Steve Rudy. I'm raising my 3 great nieces. They are triplets. They came into my care 13 months of age. They were born in Michigan, addicted to opiates at birth. While they were in care, they suffered abuse, physical abuse by a caregiver's boyfriend, in which the caregiver chose not to have them in their home. And that's where we stepped in and brought them to our home, and they became part of our family.
And Shannon, let's hear about your journey.
My name is Shannon Ivy, and I'm raising 2 of my grandchildren. Both they were both in the foster care system. When our grandson's case was closed, we went ahead and went with legal guardianship. However, when our granddaughter's case was closed, we went ahead and went with adoption because we could get the adoption assistance.
Thank you, Shannon. We're going to dive into our discussion. So, Cynthia, what supports have you received since becoming a grand family?
I got into IRAP and 211 kinship navigation, court papers that needed to fill out, be filled out, and we had a really good Thanksgiving, the whole meal. And then Challenger Chicks, a club in Cuna that got me new tires and an oil change for my car.
Thank you, Cynthia. Stephen, same question.
Well, my story was a little different. We received very little to no support. When we first took in the girls, our family increased from 6 to 9. We began applying for assistance, trying to find ways to get support for them since they had been born opiate addicted and not knowing all the challenges they would face due to mental health and other difficulties. When we applied for assistance and from the Health and Welfare Department, I was treated as 2 families, a family of 5, which was me and the triplet nieces, and a family of 6 with my own, 7, with my own 4 children. We weren't a family of 9, which we were like in my home. And so when they looked at income and any support, they weren't seeing us as 1. They were seeing us as 2 and judged us basically on the income accordingly. So many times we saw denial because as a family of 5, I had a good income. But as a family of 9, it was much different. Through this effort, I applied. We finally did get the girls' Medicare, especially with the problems that were coming from the opiate addiction. And we were able to get the Taffy 3019. Ironically, in our case, we had planned to use that 309 towards legal expenses. And because we didn't spend it fast enough, the state took back $4,000 from us since it was on the card. And that was our biggest obstacles that we faced.
Thank you, Stephen. Shannon?
We've had the support from family, friends, and the community. The biggest support has came from IRAP. As already mentioned, they support the families in ways that both social and material.
Thank you. Peer support programs are essential for children and families, especially when children are separated from their parents, whether or not they enter the child welfare system. Having a community of people who understand their experiences provides a vital lifeline for the children, the youth, parents, and the caregivers. Idaho Relatives as Parents offers that support, creating a space where kinship caregivers can connect, share experiences, and access the resources they need. Cynthia, can you share with us how you became involved with Idaho Relatives as Parents?
Yes, I called Health and Welfare to see what kind of services that I could get, and they referred me to Charlie IRAP, and ever since then, everything's been getting better and better for me.
Thank you. Stephen?
Well, the one fortunate thing we've got from Health and Welfare is we found the girls qualified for Medicare. So we were receiving literature from them, and we found about the 211 kinship picnic. I think it was one of the first ones. And because I was so wanting to make sure I helped the girls succeed in every way I can, I went to this picnic seeing if I could find any resources. And it was here that I met Sheila, who was a board member at the time of IRAP, and realized that I was not alone, because as a kinship family, you're thinking you are the only one. And when I met Sheila and found IRAP, I realized that I was only not alone, and there were other people who shared and I could talk to without feeling out of place.
Thank you, Stephen. Shannon?
When we were fostering, our youngest, Charlie, used to come to the foster care meetings in Mountain Home for the training and stuff. She offered resources after the foster care faded away. We've now got Monique, who's taken over the Elmore County, and we have 2 monthly meetings, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, because a lot of our families, they're still working at our age. And they couldn't get to the morning meetings, so we now have an afternoon meeting.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you. So, what supports or activities has IRAP provided that have helped reduce your personal stress, improved your mental health, and or lessened your sense of isolation as a caregiver? Cynthia?
Helped out a lot, like when I had to go get Social Security cards, birth certificates, I had nothing. Charlie went with me and babysat while I did that. Just resources on gas, diaper banks, about everything I needed. So.
Thank you. Stephen?
I think the biggest help for me was support groups. So I had spent my first year with the triplets feeling as though everyone was giving me empathy. When I came to this group, I was now normal. They understood what I was going through because they've either gone through it or were going through it themselves. Not only did they give us the support, but they gave us family activities. When you're a kinship family and not receiving support, you cut out everything except for the basics for the entire family. And they gave us activities where we could come together and the children could feel normal and not someone who was living with someone besides their parents. So it gave us a chance to let these kids be kids as well.
Thank you. Shannon, what supports have you received that have lessened your sense of isolation?
Yeah, I was feeling very isolated for a long time. But the family picnics, we always look forward to. And we always look forward to the holiday get together. That has been one of the main things. My kids look forward to it all the time. So do I. And the care baskets that Charlie has been able to arrange to get for us. The phone calls that Charlie has put up with from me. And the respite program that we've been able to use in the past was a great help to us so that we didn't feel alone and so we could get away for a little bit and just breathe.
And Shannon also told me earlier that she really appreciates the kinship groups that are being held in Mountain Home. Everything used to be in Boise, and now Elmore County is starting to grow, and also Payette now has a support group there. And so these smaller communities, Shannon said, it's so nice. I don't have to drive.
And find the gas to go.
Okay. In December, Congress passed the Supporting Americans, Children and Families Act, H.R. 9076, which was signed into law on January 4th, 2025. This legislation aims to enhance support for families caring for children outside of the formal foster care system by expanding access to financial assistance, legal resources, and critical services for kinship caregivers. How do you think the funding provided to Idaho through this legislation could best be used to support kinship families outside of the child welfare system?
Maybe for daycare, like when I have appointments and stuff. Maybe help with the housing part, because it was only me, and now I have 3, so I need a bigger place, which I'm seeking out. And more money for diapers and stuff would be good too.
Anything else? No. Okay. She, with the 1 and a 3-year-old, what Cynthia found is going to doctor's appointments for herself is really tough because don't bring your children to the appointments. So what do? And with no daycare, affordable daycare available, it's been really tough on a great-grandmother to be able to take care of her own physical and mental needs. So having money put aside to help with that daycare at least a couple of times a week to her own mental health would be great. Stephen.
Kinship families like mine often face significant financial challenges. The everyday expenses that you face cause you many times to reduce things that other families find to be normal. Some of these pleasures can be as simple as going to the zoo, the park, and many activities that are very important to the bonding experience as the child grows. Children in kinship need these experiences as well. I think we should intentionally set aside funds to allow these children to have these experiences. If it be something from going to the local museums or even the local YMCA, these expenses can be burdens upon these families. And I think by putting money aside to help these families, the whole family, experience them, provide some opportunities to have a sense of belonging and happiness. But there's one step I think we need to think beyond this. There are sometimes these big milestones that we don't think about how expensive they can be. Something as simple as a high school graduation. When it comes to a kinship family, sometimes these families are afraid to step forward because of the expenses that a senior in high school goes for. I think these too are important for us to consider in this funding, because many times not only the child being brought in as the kinship, but the family has had to sit back to make sure that food on the table and not have senior pictures, not have cap and gown, and not want to go forward in your own graduation moments. And I think we need to think about these costs that we also want to have, because these are great moments in this child and that family's life that they need to be able to be part of. I truly believe the struggles that families go through could help with these hardships and seeing them not as so much as negative, but having some light at the end of the table. Together, I believe by investing in family experiencing and celebrating key milestones like graduations, we'll provide the kinship families with the resources they need to foster growth, connection, and hope for the future.
I think Stephen should have been over here instead of over there. He's doing a fabulous job. Shannon.
Well, first of all, we need to set money aside to clone Charlie.
All right, Shannon, short of actually cloning me, what would you like to see the money spent on? Pull your mic closer, say, I want them to hear you.
Oh, you want me to, you really do? Okay. Well, like Charlie was stating earlier, we need to get the rural areas more, what would you call it? The meetings, so that maybe send somebody out to the rural areas, like Hope, Idaho, and all them places that don't have support groups from IRAP in there. And to try to find these families because they are feeling alone. I was alone. And Charlie helped me through that. We need funds for home repairs, you know, like electricians, things like this, that because we're in an older home, we weren't expecting to be raising kids at this time of our life. Like the child care, and because once they're adopted, they're yours. You're responsible for them. And that's pretty much it.
And I know that there's a lot of times when it would be nice if there was money available to do things such as, oh wait, we need to build a room because we've got 9 kids now instead of 6. Or that, like Shannon says, just doing the regular maintenance on our homes. We don't realize that when you're taking a child in and you're not getting the foster care reimbursement, all of this stuff comes out of a budget. And so treating the family as a family unit instead of as the kinship, kiddos, and everybody else. If we looked at it as a family unit and having those funds available to buy the graduation stuff for the birth family or the child that isn't the kinship child, that's still treating the family and not just looking at that kinship child. And so we could really go a long ways to supporting our families. Is there anything else that you guys would like to add before that we haven't talked about?
Maybe some help with like groceries. Some of us we aren't qualified for the SNAP programs, and we still eat. Yeah, clothing. Yes, the wardrobe's great for younger children. My grandson's only 13, but he's wearing men's size clothing. They don't really have that there for him. So vouchers for gas to get to Boise, to get to these places. That would be nice.
I think the most important thing I want to point out is, as a kinship family, we want to feel just like every other family has the opportunity. We want the opportunities to be able to live. We don't bring these children in because we want to. We bring them in because we need to bring them. These are children that need love just like any other child. And we want every opportunity to give them those opportunities in the world that every other child goes. Because remember, these are these children, my daughters, are now going to the same school that their peers are going into. And I want them to have the same experiences as their friends. Because when they come back crying, they may not cry in class, but when they come back to you, it breaks your heart when you've got to tell them no, when so many other people in their class had to be say yes because of small things like finances and things like that.
So, Stephen, did I just hear you say you'd like to see some of this money go for sports, fees, uniforms, dance lessons, all of the things that other children have the opportunity for?
Yes, we need to make sure every child feels important, and they need to feel whole. They need to feel like a person and not an item.
Thank you, Stephen. I want to thank all of you for your time and attention to this critical discussion on grand families, kinship, and the need for stronger support systems. Research consistently shows that children thrive when they can remain with family. However, we must do more to ensure that kinship caregivers have the resources and assistance they need as they take on the important role and responsibility of raising that next generation. Let's continue to work together to strengthen and support our grand families. We have worked with different organizations. We've worked with the Department of Health and Welfare. We've worked under Area Agency on Aging. We've worked with nonprofits, local churches, local support or service organizations, and individuals. And I would like to see that work continue. We have a few minutes. If anybody has a question, we'll take a couple of questions from the audience.
I know on the FAFSA, as a former foster child, there is a box that asks, have you ever been in foster care before? And if we check that goes into the calculation how much Pell Grants and stuff you qualify, and then our whole income. Is there a box that says, have you ever lived outside of you? It only applies to foster children.
Will you repeat the question for those who are watching online?
Okay, so for those of you who didn't hear, actually, I think if you guys want to say it, you could come up to the mic, that would be great. When you're a child in foster care and you're applying for Pell Grants and other resources, there's a box that you can check that says, were you ever in foster care? And the question was, is there a similar box that says, were you ever in kinship care or lived outside of your family home? The answer is no. There is not a box designated for our kinship families, even though they are doing the same job as if they had been in foster care, just without the supports, without the financial reimbursement, and without all of the benefits of being able to check that box. So yeah, it would be great if we could have that box that says, were you ever in foster or kinship care? Good question.
And I want to add, I have 3 children in college now. And so often as a family, because your kids are not fostered, you are treated differently when it comes to that. So you mentioned funding. There are many times where, as a kinship parent, you can't think of yourself of that scenario. You sometimes have to let it go because you feel the pain because you see the same child in the same experience as your own child not having the same opportunities because they are using the word kin. In my opinion, kinship and foster should be universal words, and it's not. If I say kinship, people look at me like, okay, nice talking to you. And I've had the experience even here in one of our own events at Boise State. But again, it's the same child. They're both experiencing the same thing.
Foster care. If you're, my granddaughter's in foster care, I get the
Foster care reimbursement.
I never say this right, but the advocates that
Yeah.
it's like their voice for the court. That guardian. Does kinship get that, or do they have to pay to have a guardian license go in front of a judge? They have to actually come up with that $5,000 if they want to go in front of a judge to get like guardian.
Okay, so the question was, When a child is in foster care and they are placed with relatives, they get that foster care reimbursement rate. They get help with filing for that guardianship and or adoption. And the question was, do kinship families have that same opportunity? Did I paraphrase correctly? It's okay. And then also there's a guardian ad litem or an attorney that is given automatically to a child in foster care. Does a child in kinship care get that same opportunity? The answer is no. And if they file for guardianship outside of the foster care system, that fee is on the kinship parent. That fee is on the kinship parent. There's no money available to help pay for that, those fees at all. And then they have, so yeah, that's why we're up here screaming, look at foster care and the hidden foster care, kinship families, and treat the children the same. Treat the families the same. Lucindy, you had your hand up. Lucindy in the back is one of our kinship families that has had absolutely no help from anybody, and they don't qualify for anything because they make too much money for everything. So she's just really, go ahead, Lucindy.
You're right, we got nothing, we still don't get anything. 5. Up for 5, and we're qualified as nothing, and now they're I can't even put them in sports. Who do you choose gets to go to sports when you
Mm-hmm. So basically what was said there was that because they made good money for a family of 2 and they took the kids in before they went into care, they're now a family of 5. And unfortunately, they're not looked at that way a lot of the times because they're kinship families. And so they don't always look at it that way. And they didn't qualify for the relative grant because of other things going on. So they literally are not getting any help. Yes.
Getting back to the person who asked about fees and legal.
Yeah.
With my triplets, I think to make them safe and whole, I've spent over $10,000 of my personal money, one, to first getting the guardianship and bringing them from the state of Michigan. And then I had to pay for 3 adoptions. And luckily for us, it was a lawyer we'd use because my 4 other children were also adopted. And so we knew the process and knew how to go through it. But no, being a kinship parent is very expensive. Like I said, to bring in the children, I had to build a room in our basement and move 2 of my older children. The joke around our house is paying for insurance for teenagers and diapers at the same time. It becomes a way of life, and you accept it, and you'll do anything for these child because they are your children. And you want to make sure they have the opportunities. So yes, as a kinship, many things that you wish you could get help. And I'm going to confess, as a kinship parent, sometimes I'm jealous of foster parents. Mm-hmm. Because when I see them getting something, I mean, heck, because I had identical triplet girls, I had to buy 3 of everything. And I don't know about you, but formula and diapers add up very quickly when you have 3 at the same time.
I do want to point out that since Alex Adams has gone into the health and welfare, kinship is now being included in a lot of those discussions, and we're really excited about it. So when he got the park passes, then they offered some to us, the kinship families that are not in the foster care system. And we just recently got included in those Idaho museum passes. But up until this year, That never happened. Anything that the foster families got, it was just that. Foster families got it, and our kinship families didn't. So I really need to say thank you, Alex, for looking at kinship differently this year. Jesse?
Foster family before, with my kids' friends, but now I'm doing kinship, and seems to have a revolving door at my house, for one reason or another. But I know that even the simplest thing is doing your taxes, because I do taxes, and I have people call me from this group all the time saying, how do we put these people on? And it's so much harder because I have to have so much information. I have to have them run to the school and get things from school saying exactly when they were put into their household and how long did they go into school and are they their emergency services? And there's just stuff from the doctors, and I feel bad for some of these people that have been just kind of dropped. Because what we do, we just take them in. We don't even ask questions. We just take our grandkids in or our relatives, and we never ask a question. We just automatically do it. And it doesn't matter how stretched we already are. We always figure out how to pinch that penny, an extra penny, or find something. And I know the resources here in Idaho are very hard. I sympathize with
Stephen.
Over the mental health issues, because I had a child, my granddaughter, that had terrible mental issues from what she had gone through. And it was extremely hard to find help for her. Because of her age and because of her sex, unfortunately. If she had been a boy, it would have been a lot easier, but because she was a girl. So there's a lot of things but if she would have been in foster care or adopted, it would have been a lot easier to find somebody or even to get help.
Right.
So I'm hoping that this federal really starts to realize that these kids are loved, probably some of them more than your own at times, your biological ones at times, but they deserve the same exact things as everybody else.
Okay, so I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version of that. So basically what Jesse was saying was that with kinship children, things such as filing taxes becomes a whole new issue. Being able to find mental health for our kids. If they were in foster care, it would be a whole lot easier. But because they're in kinship care, there's all kinds of hoops that you have to jump through, and you may or may not get the service. So Jesse's point was that all of the children, whether they're in kinship care or formal foster care, should have the same opportunities. Did I get it? Perfect. Amanda? Good question. Amanda's question was, if somebody wanted to help out with our kinship families, what could they do? We have a list of ways that you can help on the table in the back. If you want to grab them and pass them out, there's a number of things that you can do. I'm not going to list them here. You can grab that. You can call me. Trust me, I have ideas. If you have an idea, I'm willing to explore it, okay? But yeah, there's always something that you can do to support us. Danette?
Guardianship, we have adoption, but then there are those of us who lingered for 10 years.
Yeah.
And to speak to that, a lot of us with kinship are also keep our own relationship.
Right, and again, we're going to do the Reader Digest version. Danette was saying that she would like us to address the longevity, that sometimes kinship families are going 10 years or longer, and they're doing what they need to do. Coming through foster care, it is usually a 2-year process in which that is then finalized in either adoption or guardianship. And sometimes with kinship families, they're not finalized either way. They're just kinship, and it goes on and on. There are really no resources at this point. But remember, we just talked about 9076, HR 9076. Maybe we could look at some of those fundings to help put into place processes that would help with that long-term caregiving that isn't supported anywhere. I don't know. Andrew? Yes. Okay. Has kinship caregiving been impacted with legislature that has now said the parent has to get permission? The answer is yes. Unless we have legal guardianship or unless we have a power of attorney, we're pretty much beat as far as getting our kids to have that normal opportunity that other kids have, especially if the daughter or the son has dropped them off and is off and we don't even know where they're at, which is not an unusual circumstance for our kinship families. We're pretty much beat unless we can get that legal guardianship. And a lot of times our families won't go for legal guardianship because if I apply for it and it's not granted, I just upset. I just upset my daughter or my son, and they can come in and put that child back in danger that I took them out of by agreeing to be that kinship family. And there's nothing as a grandparent that I can do to keep my child safe. So, yeah, it hurt a lot. Jane.
My granddaughter that's 4, living with my oldest daughter for 2.5 years, and she tried to get legal guardianship. Because there was no resources for her, she had to give my granddaughter back to my other daughter. 5 months later, she told the judge this, 5 months later, my granddaughter ended up in the state's custody. Because there was no resources through kinship. That's why I was asking about the legal part of it, because of that situation, she ended up still in the state's custody because there was nothing and nobody would hear her out that this was not a good situation for her to be in.
Right. So basically what was said was that the aunt was raising these children and was trying to go for guardianship. It was not granted. The children ended up going back to the parents and 5 months later came into formal foster care. Had there been a resource to help with this guardianship before, those children would not have been subjected to 5 months of trauma. I'm sorry?
Question. A little two-parter. So first, what words of encouragement or advice would you give to grandparents or relatives that are kind of in this situation where they need to over, custody or watch over or guardianship, and they are concerned about finances, supports, or anything like that? And the second part of the question is, for the panelists specifically, I know there's been struggles attached with this, but was it worth it?
Yes. You guys, answer first. Was it worth it?
I'd like to answer that.
Go for it, Shannon.
I'd like to answer, yes, it was definitely worth it. I've got a little young man. He's not little anymore. He's taller than me. He's 13 years old. He's got a 4.0 in school. this was a kid that was shaken at birth, okay? And we knew that it wasn't going to be a good situation for him. So we took him in. I bagged groceries out of the Mountain Home Commissary to pay for a lawyer because I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I just seen this little baby that I knew I needed to help. I don't have any regrets of taking him in. I don't regret getting his little sister most of the time. There is times on her, but she's a little challenging. They say it keeps you young. They don't know Ania. But yes, it was worth it in both situations. We're very proud of both of them. She's doing as well as she can do, and Eddie will make a difference in this world. Yes.
Than she was ever expected to do.
Yeah.
And it's because she's had the love
Mhm.
and support.
Yeah.
And that's probably the best thing.
Mm-hmm. It's okay, we have Kleenex up here.
Okay.
Was it worth it?
I would say it's worth it. I mean, looking at those days that I was driving Uber Eats during COVID to pay for building a room for the children, to having them go through their struggles with ADD, to now going to a new school because of school closures in our district, and having teachers coming to us and saying, you know, your daughter's at the top of the curve. Your daughter who's in first grade is now reading at second grade, shows that the struggle is always worth it because these children are our future.
Mm-hmm.
Those of us who are in this situation, we know we're not getting any younger, and we want to make sure that our future is there to carry on for us.
They're going to pick my nursing home, just so you know.
Was it worth it?
Yes, it's worth it, and it still is. The only regret is that I wasn't better off when I got them, that we're starting on the bottom level, but it's all worth it when they look at you and say, I love you, Grandma.
Okay, and I'll make this really, really quick. The last part of that question was, what advice would we give to other kinship families that are thinking to go into this situation? First and foremost, find your village. You cannot do this alone. There are support groups out there. We would love to hear from you. Help change minds. Help with what we can do to make sure that kinship and foster go together, that the advantages that foster children and foster care have are offered to kinship families, and that takes a strong voice. So get behind any legislature that is doing it. Get a hold of Christine Tiddens and tell her what you want her to fight for our children of Idaho. We're out of time, and she's going to cut my mic off, so thank you. On the back, you do have papers.
Thank you so much. I hope that you all understand as speakers and panelists that you have had so much power and influence just in sharing your story and helping all of us understand the opportunities that are presented by taking, kinship, building kinship families, as well as areas that we can improve on. So thank you. So that concludes our presentation portion of the day. The Foster Care Awareness Day, we do encourage folks to utilize being at the Capitol, to search out and talk to your lawmakers. Remember, if you scout out when you're headed, everybody's on lunch right now, or soon to be. I think the House floor is still in session. But as you head out, keep an eye out for red and white name badges. Say hello, introduce yourself, invite folks to come to the first floor rotunda. We will still have tables set up through the lunch hour. If you want to grab a snack or eat lunch in the Capitol, just around the corner here is the cafeteria. It is open to the public. And again, I am so inspired and just in awe by all of the stories and energy and excitement. And that's what keeps me going as we head into the Capitol and be really strong advocates for youth and families impacted by foster care. So thank you, everybody. One thing to note, we are working with Idaho Public Television, who live stream this, to get copies of all of the presentations, and so please reach out if you would like to view or share any of the presentations today. Thanks.